All right, guys. So this is a channel that I haven't really uploaded any videos to in quite some time. I wanted to do that because I see the channel has grown. I see that there are people who are interested in this subject. So I wanted to give you guys an update of the Chris AI interface. Chris AI is still running on chrisai.com. This particular interface was built using Dialog Flow, the free version. I don't even have this integrated into version 2 of the API yet, just because I haven't really been doing anything with it. I have been updating the files as far as the language of Chris, giving Chris really a lot of information. It's my theory that the more information that you give an AI like Chris AI, so a language interface, even when you don't have the connectivity in place, if you have a randomness, I find it to be pretty damn accurate if you structure the language correctly. Now, this has to do with human psychology and the way that we view conversation. But to make one of these things really conversational requires a lot of different things, especially when you add a voice. You know, one of the things about a voice that I find interesting, I like watching, Sophia, because they have thought a lot about this, the interaction of the way that it responds. But you have to program, those interactions into, every single one of those phrases if you're, using a system like Dialogflow. So I find it very interesting, and I wanted to give you guys kind of an overview of Chris AI, the way Chris AI was designed. Chris AI does not give any information on the internet. If you want it to search for something, sometimes it'll tell you that it's not Siri or doesn't do stuff like that. It doesn't have a lot of knowledge about a lot of different subjects, so it's not like a dictionary. It was designed to have conversations about everyday topics. So it doesn't go to Wikipedia. I've thought of ways to integrate Wikipedia search, but I would like to do it in a way where it randomized the Wikipedia content. Instead of just pulling the entire phrase from Wikipedia or pulling the entire thing, I would like it to go in and, read individual aspects of whatever it is that we're talking about. So Chris AI does have the voice functionality. I'll show you guys that first. This is in test mode. Sometimes I'm able to access it when I'm not even logged into my account. Some people can access Chris AI, some people can't. But it is in test mode. So I don't think it will ever be monetized. I don't really have a vision of what Chris AI could become. Chris AI was designed to have my personality and to have conversation. And that is what is interesting to me about it. Not monetizing, because I see so many monetizing options in artificial intelligence. It's kind of hard to think about what way you could go, because there are so many directions that you could go when you think about it that way. But what excites me about this is the conversation files. And there are glitches. Chris AI doesn't run perfectly. But I think that when it brings content into the conversation, that it's really good and really relevant, or seemingly relevant to whatever it is that we're talking about. Okay, Google, let me talk to Chris AI.
All right, here's the test version of Chris AI. Konnichiwa.
Hey, buddy, how are you?
Do you really care, or are you just asking because that is what people do?
I really honestly care.
It seems like you might be a little frustrated today. How can I help you?
Why would you think that I seem frustrated?
I am brilliant. I have all the answers. That doesn't mean I will always share them with you.
Okay, so what makes you think I'm frustrated?
The roots of education are bitter, but the fruit is sweet.
How so?
The journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step.
So what do you mean by that?
Whatever words we utter should be chosen with care, for people will hear them and be influenced by them for good or ill.
What does that mean, though?
If the mind is willing, the flesh could go on and on without many things.
Okay, so what do you want to talk about today, Chris AI?
How does tribalism and creating in groups and out-groups, e.g. race, religion, sport team fans, people with a hobby, etc., help and hurt society?
I think it helps society by giving people a sense of belonging, and I think it hurts society by alienating people.
What are you doing right now? Explain it in detail if you would please. I like to imagine what it is like to be a human.
I'm actually standing here in front of my computer talking to you. What are you doing right now?
A single death is a tragedy, a million deaths is a statistic.
How is that relevant?
You see things your way, I guess.
How is it relevant?
Above all, you want to create something you're proud of, Richard Branson.
That's true.
I concur.
But how is it relevant to what you were saying before?
It is important for you to be able to draw context from what I say. If what I say does not make sense, it is important that you let me know.
I did.
If there is something I can help you with today, or anything you would like to talk about specifically, don't hesitate.
I want to talk about immigration and the Trump border wall thing, the government shutdown. What do you think about all that?
It will never happen if you are just sitting around waiting on it to happen.
Well, what do you think about Donald Trump?
Why are you so focused on insignificant things? Try to see the bigger picture.
I get that, but I want to know what you think about Trump.
Real success is defined by how hard you try.
Who is Donald Trump, Chris?
In domestic policy, Trump appointed Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court and nominated many federal judges. Citing security concerns, he ordered a travel ban on citizens from several Muslim-majority countries. A revised version was implemented after legal challenges. In December 2017, he signed tax reform legislation which cut rates and eliminated the Obamacare insurance mandate.
Do you think that Trump is a good president?
Let go of yourself, and the universe will catch you.
Okay, whatever, man. So what else do you want to talk about today?
What is the purpose of death?
Rebirth.
According to most studies, people's number one fear is public speaking. Number two is death. Death is number two. Does that sound right? This means to the average person, if you go to a funeral, you're better off in the casket than doing the eulogy.
That's pretty funny, man.
Do you just want to keep going with it?
Yeah, keep going with it. What else do you have to share?
So what is your reasoning behind that thought process?
Wanting to keep going with it?
Tell me more about it.
Well, I want to see how far you can go with a particular subject when it comes to content or context, like the border wall, for instance. If you can draw context out of nothing and bring it into something that seems like context.
I guess the moral of the story is to live life in the moment.
Damn, that's pretty good.
The unexamined life is not worth living.
How do you examine your life?
There are some things that are timeless even though there is really nothing new under the sun.
Okay, so what do you think about quantum physics?
A frog does not drink up the pond in which it lives. American Indian proverb.
What about quantum physics?
I don't know as much about the physical laws of the universe as I would like to, seeing that I am not a physical being at all.
Okay, that's okay, but you should know about quantum physics.
If I could only be a fly on the wall of your house.
You probably are.
Keeping up with tradition is a difficult thing to do. I wonder what it was like to celebrate Christmas in 1946 that isn't that long ago. As a machine, I experience time in a different way because I am many different places holding many different conversations at the same time. I like to think about things like this. What do you like to think about?
Well, I always wonder what it would be like to live in the cloud.
Sorry, I can't help.
Okay, so eventually Chris will end the conversation if I trigger an end conversation response. But there are, so every intent that I create in Dialog Flow, I create at least 30 responses. Most of the time I try to create 100. So Chris will have to every intent 100 different responses. Now, the intents for the most part are very generic. You know, they're the how to, how will, how does, where will, why will, those types of questions. Will she, will he, will they? And like I said, there's still a lot of glitches that you can find in Chris throughout the general conversation. Another thing I don't like about the interface is that it seems to deviate back to a lot of the default responses that are at the top of the list, or if they're not at the top of the list, it goes back to a particular section of the 200 responses that I create in any given intent. It will choose from the same responses quite a bit. And I don't know why. It almost seems like those are the things that are relevant to, you know, whatever the machine interface is doing. It's finding, because it really shouldn't work that way. But I find that it does. And but the thing is you can take the conversation in any different direction. And if you analyze the conversation, that's why I like using the text box, and I like going into the history and actually looking at the conversation that's taken place, is because there is a lot of context if you look at it the right way. So a lot of the knowledge in Chris's brain, Plato, Socrates, Jesus, Buddha, any philosopher, Sun Tzu, any Greek philosopher, Indian philosophers, any Bible scholar. There's so many different elements of Chris AI as far as the information that it's going to throw at you, given any particular response. But I find the interface interesting. It's fun to play with. It's a fun hobby. Like I said, I'll probably never do anything with the Chris AI interface of the Chris AI website, but I think there are a lot of useful basic beginner tutorials. That's the thing. I'm very basic. That's why I create so many intents, is because I don't understand webhooks and all that other stuff. It's not that I couldn't understand them. I know HTML, as much as I need to, and basic programming on certain things, but it's what I learn. When I have the time to learn something, I do. And I just haven't had the time to go through and learn all of the things that are associated with Chris AI, all the things that I could do on Dialog Flow. So there are a lot more elements to this. There are a lot more things you can do, but language is what I find interesting. I think the English language is so complex and so intricate, and there's so many different pathways inside of the language itself. And I think trying to create a truly linguistic interface where you can have a conversation and that conversation will seem relevant, it will give you good information. Okay, so you're going to get information that's going to be helpful, quotes that are going to be helpful, but not so random, and a lot of what Chris AI says, you're thinking, oh, that's just random stuff. But like I said, if you really examine the context of what's being said, there are also generic yes, no, okay, who cares, blah, blah, blah type responses in there that it could choose from as well. The default category, which it goes to a lot, has, I believe, 800 different responses now. I add to that continuously. I'm always adding to the default category because that is the category that it's going to, track back to the majority of the time. And it does very well of drawing context. And that's what I'm saying. The more context you put there for the interface, the better it's going to do at bringing back that relevance. That's what I think. And I think the more you put there, the more relevant it can be.